How one villain broke Webtoon forever. Before we get into this, I read a lot of Webtoons. Well, not really Webtoons, but like manhwa and like all those. I don't really know the other names, I forget. But for me personally, I love just like reading and even watching. Like I love anime and I love reincarnation anime. I don't know. And specifically, to get even more niche, I specifically like the reincarnated animes and like mangas and manhwas and all that stuff where they die, right? And then they get transformed into another world, right? But they're a kid. Like that, like, because then you see them grow like from a kid to like an adult, right? And I also like the when they're reincarnated, like when they already lived their life and then they died and then they get reincarnated back as like a kid or whatever, so they can like rewrite their wrongs. I like that, but like they already know what's happening, like they already know what's gonna happen, so it's kind of like like they already know what to do. But when it's like they die and then they get reincarnated into another world as like a kid, you kind of go through the journey with them, you kind of learn with them instead of them just knowing automatically what to do. Like I've been watching Jobless Reincarnation. I seriously have just binged that. Like I'm almost done with the first season. It's so good, and the animation is also really good. Highly recommend. It is really raunchy. It's very like some parts it's like you didn't have to add that. You didn't really have to add that. But the rest of the story I really like. I really like how everything's going right now and like the different stuff that they have. And I really like that anime specifically for that reason. And also like mangas, I just like, it's the art style again for me. Like when I see like the title, not the title, but like the image of the like story, and it's like, oh, like they're reincarnated, oh, they're like a kid, there's like a kid on the cover or whatever, so it's like, oh, that's like right up my alley. But I don't like the art style. I will say that I just won't read it. I won't read it. Some of the ones like on Webtoon that are like older and already have a fan base, I kind of give more lenience to, because then it's also cool when it's like you see their writing style in the beginning and then you see their writing style at the end, and it's just like you can just see the progression of their art style just change and like get better, get like a different style and all that stuff. I really like seeing that as well. But if it doesn't look like something I would actually read, it's like my top favorite Webtoons are probably Taming a Tyrant. I also like those, or like Taming the Duke of the North or whatever. Death is the only ending for the villainess, or like villains are destined to die. There's other things for that. The Oak Tree, I really like that. I don't think that one's reincarnation though. Married Empress, which the title was like, this is probably the Remarried Empress one. That one's a really big like thing. The male leads are trapped in my house. That's not a reincarnation one. That's like a zombie one. That's also, I really like that one. Also Time Limits. I really like when the character's reincarnated as a kid or another person, right? And they have a time limit on their life. So they just do like outlandish stuff. Like I love reading those as well. Iron Wall Maiden. I really like that one. How to Get My Husband on My Side. Oh, that one's so good. I binge read that one. After School Lessons for Unripe Apples. That one is like a slow. It's very slow burn between like two like students in high school or whatever. I remember I binge read that one and then I kind of just stopped. So I really don't remember what happens like at all in it. But like it's kind of like, it's so slow burn that like they hold hands in the first like 100 chapters. Like it's so slow burn. But it's like, I really like that one. I should probably reread that, but yeah, I have some game. I have some ball in this. I really like, I've read a lot.
Every once in a while, we're introduced to a villain that breaks the community. Someone who starts an entirely new kind of villainy that spans 1,000 works created after them. Someone so broken that every villain in a new story is compared to her. So infamous that her name is banned on several subreddits because it always starts heated, unstoppable arguments. She is unforgettable, the most hated character on Webtoon, and possibly the most tragic one of them all. This is the power of Rashta from the Remarried Empress. The most defining feature of Rashta's character is actually fairly simple. She is the other woman. Rashta was a slave who had nothing, who managed to charm the emperor of her nation, a man named Sovishu. She becomes his mistress, while also becoming the #1 enemy of our protagonist, Empress Navia. From the very first chapter, it is obvious that Rashta is the complete opposite to Navia in every way possible. Navia
I do remember at the end when Sovishu or whatever is so like, because like she leaves, spoiler, she leaves, Navia leaves, and the emperor is just like, oh, I miss her so much. Like, bro, he basically like ignored her for like the entirety of their marriage, right? He like was just like, you're so uptight or whatever, and you're so cold to me or whatever. But like, she loved Sovishu, right? And then she left because of Rashta. And then he afterwards, it's just so infuriating because he's just like, oh, I miss her so much. I loved her. No, you didn't appreciate her, bro. You didn't. You literally got like Rashta to, oh my god.
It is poised,
he's so
reserved.
Annoying. I would say that he's more annoying than Rashta. He's just
elegant and highly educated. Rashta, on the other hand, is messy, hyper-emotional, and she was never even taught how to read. While Navia is shown to be strategic, competent, an excellent empress, Rashta uses sly, underhanded tactics to make her way through the world. So far, this doesn't sound like anything revolutionary. This is a pretty common dynamic we see in stories. But this character has 540 million haters. Dubbed Trashta by the Webtoon readers,
Yep.
She has an almost mythical reputation in the world of webcomics. How? Why is she so hated? A lot of people feel that readers hate Rashta blindly, simply because she stands against Navia, our perfect, beautiful protagonist. Now, while that may hold a little bit of truth, I still believe it's an oversimplification. In my analysis, I saw 4 clear reasons why the readers hate Rashta so much. Nothing
because
is
she's just annoying. Like all she does is whine, and she usually gets her way, and it's just annoying.
more grating than a person who pretends to be the picture of innocence while secretly plotting something inside. It activates something primal within us.
Yeah,
it's
it's
way worse than someone who's clearly threatening. It makes us feel almost helpless because no one will believe us if we claim that this person was harming us. And that is exactly what Navia goes through. Rashta's act of innocence and sincerity was her greatest weapon. Anytime she was confronted, her first reaction was to burst into tears.
It's
She
so
always
annoying.
made it seem like other people were being cruel to her. She acted weak and harmless while casually destroying people's lives. This drove the readers up the wall, making them despise her, especially because Rashta was actually rather incompetent. It's one thing to lose to a villain that is stronger and smarter than you. That's what feels right, even thrilling, I'd say. But true hatred arises when our protagonist is beaten by someone who is seen as deeply inferior. Rashta is no mastermind. She is painted as stupider.
And she also gets like, she's easily manipulated, right? But it's just so annoying that like Sovishu or whatever prefers Rashta over Navia, because like, not, oh my god, it's just so annoying. And it's like, bro, he's just so
As strategic, she has fewer resources, and yet she worms her way to the top by using her looks or by spreading rumors about other people to start chaos. The move that gives her the biggest power in the story was just her being pregnant. The plot just kind of unfolds in her favor for several chapters just
so
because she was
annoying.
carrying a royal child. She wins even though she is sloppy and incompetent, and it is very irritating to lose to someone like her. And the worst part is, Rashta fails to take advantage of any of her fortunate victories.
Hello YouTube, hello. I just wanted to say, if you watched this far in the video, I really appreciate you. And if you want to subscribe, you can. If you don't, you don't have to. But I also wanted to come on here and say that I do have a Twitch. The days are kind of inconsistent when I stream, but I do stream usually from 12 till like 4 p.m. My time, Eastern time. So if you want to check me out, that'd be awesome. I also have like 0 followers, so if you want to follow me on Twitch, that would also be really cool. But yeah, this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. I'll also have it linked down in the description if you want to go check me out. I do reacts on there, and I play video games. The video games I don't really edit and post on YouTube. So if you wanted to catch those live, that would be awesome. But yeah, enjoy the rest of the video.
Rashta is the queen of self-sabotage. The plot hands her several early victories. She gets a place in the royal palace. She has the emperor defending her and batting for her. And she even gets to the position of empress, but she destroys every single one of those advantages. When she's blackmailed by a noble, Rashta doesn't go to the emperor with this information. Instead, she chooses to sink herself into tremendous debt trying to bribe the man. When she gets pregnant, all she has to do is sit back and enjoy being the mother to a royal child. Yet she was plagued by hunger for more importance, for more presence among the nobility, for more devotion from Sovishu. She always trusts the wrong people, rejecting good advice from Navia only to side with the duke who was secretly plotting her downfall.
Yes,
and when she finally became empress, it was a spiral straight down to hell. She became a tyrannical maniac without a shred of common sense or integrity. Her active self-sabotage is maddening to watch. And when she shows zero accountability, the reader's hatred turns into white-hot rage. I believe this is the final nail in Rashta's coffin, her lack of accountability. Nothing is ever her fault. Rashta always placed blame on other people or her circumstances or her fate, and never on herself.
Yeah.
She blames the nobles for not trusting her, even though she spread rumors about them and she pushed out their queen. She cries about people blackmailing her, even though she could resolve all of it just by being honest with Sovishu about it. She places blame on innocent maids for things that she did, and she punishes them brutally, all without feeling an ounce of guilt. This enraged the readers. She came across as evil and whiny and deeply irritating. She lies and manipulates people. She outright harms them, all without ever taking a closer look at her own actions. This blend of fake innocence, incompetence, self-sabotage, and zero accountability, topped off with her being the other woman in an affair, was the perfect cocktail for brewing reader hatred. But hang on a second. If this is all there is to her story, if she's just a really hateable villain, why is she
It's because she's so annoying. She's just so annoying. She's so annoying.
so
Oh my
controversial?
God.
Why is her name banned in numerous subreddits? Why exactly did Rashta break Webtoon? The truth is, in spite of everything there is to hate about Rashta and all the awful things she's done, she has her own army of supporters and sympathizers. And
Well, it's because she came from like a lowly position, right? And then she earned her way to the top. I guess you could argue that. And she earned all this stuff for herself. I guess you could sympathize with her. She's also, I remember when I was reading that she has like a really tragic backstory, so it kind of it helps you sympathize with her about her standing and stuff, I guess.
reason. Every time Rashta is mentioned, the two sides, the ones that hate her and the ones who don't, clash furiously. And the moderators have just decided not to let people use her name at all. In spite of all the reasons I just gave you, I believe Rashta is not to be hated. She is to be pitied. She is to be pitied for exactly the
Because she's so like incompetent and immature that you pity her, because you're like, oh, you're so stupid. You're making all these mistakes, and it's easily avoidable, but you just refuse to do anything to like
reasons I just gave you. Yes, Rashta's act of innocence makes her seem like just another scheming villainess. But I believe Rashta's innocence wasn't just an act. She truly was innocent at the start. In fact, I'd say she was too innocent to survive among the nobility, and that played a huge role in how crazy she became later on. In this
because she doesn't know how to navigate that life, so she just keeps making mistakes on it.
empire, where taking a mistress is a common act, okay? It's widely accepted, especially for royalty. She really thought she was doing nothing wrong by joining Sovashu. She truly did want to be closer to Navia, and she genuinely admired her, in her own way, of course. She yearned to be loved by Sovashu, to be seen and respected by the nobles, to have a place for herself. And most importantly, Rashta wanted to feel safe and happy. She was never a simple, two-dimensional villain, smirking from the sidelines. She was struggling, clawing to make sense of her new position and how to keep it. And while, yes, it's thoroughly irritating to see her use her looks and her tears to her advantage, she's using the only strategy that has ever worked for her. Rashta is trapped in a system where women don't have any independence. She's entirely dependent on men like Sovashu, and she needs to appeal to them in order to survive. And that's exactly what she's doing. And yes, Rashta came off as incredibly stupid, and she was really annoying doing it. But Rashta had every right to be stupid and incompetent. While Navia was raised by nobles, surrounded by wealth and abundance, and primed to be empress, Rashta was quite literally living in a hole. She echoes the sentiment herself quite early on. Navia grew up without knowing a day of hardship. She doesn't know how harsh the world really is. She probably takes her gifts of precious gems for granted. Rashta really means it. She isn't just saying this to make Navia look bad. And she is right. Rashta was sold to slavers by her own father as a little child. She struggled and worked until the skin on her fingers peeled. She barely ate, and she got physically and sexually assaulted by her masters. She lived through abuse none of us could survive, let's be real. She wasn't simply a schemer who walked into the castle with dreams of being an empress. She was a mother who just lost a child after years of abuse. She was broken and barely hanging on, trying to make her way into safety any way that she could. Her incompetence isn't an insult to her. It's a sign of how broken Navia and Sovashu's empire is, how much evil breeds within it. And that is what contributed most, not only to Rashta's incompetence, but also to her trend of active self-sabotage. On the surface, it seems like Rashta sabotages herself merely out of shallow greed, but I believe it runs deeper than just greed. Rashta isn't destructive because of ambition, but because of her most defining feature, insecurity. Her whole existence was always precarious, like she was balancing on the edge of a knife. She was always one rumor or one slip of the tongue away from being a slave all over again, of losing everything she had come to gain in her life. Even at the height of her power, she feels utterly powerless, and it makes perfect sense for her character. Every sense of safety in her life has been ripped away from her since birth. Nothing good ever lasts. So why should this position last? To us, the readers, it feels obvious who she should trust and what she should do in order to be safe. But Rashta has been betrayed by every single person she has ever met. How do you know what trust and true friendship look like if you've never ever received it? How do you distinguish enemy from protector if no one has ever protected you? You can't. And that leads us to our next point of hatred, her lack of accountability. Yes, it's extremely annoying, and she comes off like an evil, whiny child. But Rashta's lack of accountability doesn't just come from being delusional. It comes from her anger. Yes, her anger. Rashta is a deeply jaded person, full of rage, even as she puts a show of lightheartedness. She says so herself. I wanted to love and be loved wholly, to not be held in contempt just because I happened to be born in circumstances that made me a slave. Am I suffering from misfortune because I didn't know my place? Should I have bowed and scraped along as a slave? Should I have died after living such a miserable life? Rashta is angry at everything. Angry at the world for how
she's angry about her upbringing. She's angry about, the experiences she's had. She's just full of anger, and she just takes it out.
She was born into it, angry at the people who mistreated her, and furious at those who will not let her rest.
Yep.
Every small comment sends her into a blind rage, and even an illusion of a threat makes her manic. Her rage consumes her entirely. We've become so used to watching fantastical stories of growth, of mistreated and abused characters.
Oh, so good.
Rising from the ashes and being great protagonists. But how does this actually go in real life? Being abused as a child is a recipe for psychological disaster. It creates massive gaps in reasoning and self-worth that can be exploited by any savvy predator who comes across you. Contrary to popular fiction, I don't believe suffering is like pressure making diamonds out of coal or whatever. It is pain that makes a human vulnerable and a poor decision maker. And yes, at some point, you must take responsibility for your own actions. But how much mistreatment is too much? At what level of abuse is a victim too far gone, never to recover? At what point do they become a villain themselves? And if all this is true, if everything I'm saying is making a point, and Rashta does deserve to be pitied, why do the readers not see it this way? Why is she still so hated? Are the readers only interested in the rich, privileged protagonist? Are they just too shallow to see Rashta's clear characterization? No. We cannot always place blame on readers for not seeing the depth of these things, because depth is shown by the story itself. The storytelling is what shows people what or whom to care about, and it is all done by the hand of the writer. The reason people don't pity Rashta is because the writer themselves do not pity Rashta enough. Now, I'm not saying they don't pity Rashta at all. The remarried empress does a good job with one part of Rashta's pain, her PTSD. The first time Rashta ever gave birth, a dead baby was passed on to her and she was told that her real baby died. Her breakdown over this is crushing. She never stops grieving over that unknown child, even after knowing the truth. Her pain is raw, haunting, and very human. But everything else in her past, it's kind of an afterthought. The prime example of this is the treatment of slavery in the story. Navya, in spite of being intelligent and influential, with the three most powerful men of the continent in her palms, never even thinks of abolishing slavery. It doesn't even enter her mind. Now, before you say, that's how it was in those times, and it would have been difficult to repeal slavery, hold up. Wait, because having a mistress was also common and accepted in those times, especially for an emperor. And still, Rashta is painted as a horrible person for being a mistress, while Navya is painted as perfection, in spite of literally ignoring slave trade in her own empire. In fact, Navya and the other characters are downright casual about slavery. The writer creates conversations about selling children to slavery like it's no big deal. They're just discussing the weather. The writer showcases Navya's dedication to her subjects by making her tear up over their joy. Yet the writer makes her have no reaction to the plight of the slaves. They too are her subjects. The story treats Libeti, who mistreated and abused Rashta while she was a slave, as a good person. And the writer makes Navya treat her like a sister. All these little decisions downplay the horrors of Rashta's background, and it makes inexperienced readers less sympathetic towards her. The only character who was sympathetic to Rashta's background was freaking Sovishu.
That's
He's a character
crazy.
we despise. And that further makes it seem like caring about her background simply isn't a worthwhile endeavor. These are conscious choices made by the writer, and I know this because they managed to convey the seriousness of other subjects perfectly. It would have been incredible to use Rashta and Navya as foils to one another, to confront the evils of the system that they're both in, to fight against the systemic misogyny in the empire that puts women in terrible positions. At first, I hoped that's where the writer was going, but it wasn't. We just get misunderstandings, mean fights, and tragedy between the two women. Rashta was tortured and abused her whole life, and when she finally becomes empress, She was written into a full-blown monster, all because the plot demanded it. The crimes that were done to her were never confronted seriously. This is why she is so hated, in spite of being one of the most tragic characters on Webtoon. Now, I know this is dark, but at the end of the day, it's not Navia whose reputation goes far beyond the story, in spite of her supposedly being the perfect protagonist. In fact, she's rather forgettable. It's Rashta who's the most memorable, the character that most people hear about when they're first introduced to the story,
Because
the
it
one
stirs
who
emotion.
every female villain on the platform is compared to. Rashta's character may have lost in the comic, but her story won out over every single character in The Remarried Empress. I might seem like I've complained a lot in this video, but I don't hold any of this against the writer. Speaking as a writer myself, crafting a villain is one of the hardest things you have to do for your story. It exposes all the holes in your own moral compass. It is extremely hard to do it well, and in spite of the challenge, I think Rashta is a very interesting character, with a surprising amount of depth. Her story is almost Shakespearean. I do commend the writer for the detail in their story, even though I would have handled some of those details a bit differently myself. If you watched the video this far, thank you so much for your time. If you want more deep dives into anime, comics, and storytelling,
That was such a good video. I didn't even think about that.